Hi everyone, thanks for joining the latest masterclass of the Digital Agency Summit. Our speaker for this session is Mark Kelly, joining us from Manchester in the UK. Mark started his consultancy in 2012 to help creative and marketing agencies of all types with the profitable growth of their digital marketing offer. These have included traditional ATL agencies, search agencies looking to pivot to fuller digital services, startups and integrated agencies already offering digital but hitting blocks to growth. He combines an in-depth knowledge of digital marketing, 18 plus years, with experience gained at senior management level in agency operations. Mark supports his agency clients in developing their proposition, profile, teams, services, business pipeline, and profitable processes. Mark writes many of the guides and actionable templates for the renowned Smart Insights website and their global agency growth and management toolkit. Mark will be talking to us today about growing digital marketing services in your agency. So thank you for joining us, Mark.
Okay, no problem. Good to meet everyone.
So if you just want to go ahead, you can share your slides and tell us a bit more about yourself and go into your presentation.
Will do, thank you. So I'm going to talk today about growing your digital agency, which I know is the theme for the whole summit. From my point of view, I work with agencies that don't always have digital in their mix. So they could be guys who are just starting out or really established but integrated agencies. Sorry, I'll jump back. And my background, which I'll come on to in the slides, is I've been working in the agency world for around 25 years, which always sounds like a huge amount of time when I say it, but about, I'd say probably 17 of those, something like that, has been within agencies. And in the last 5 years or so, maybe, I've been working as an independent advising agencies. So shall I just move on to the slides to start with? Yeah, as I said, the session, when I put this together, I was really thinking about the guys, the agencies that I work with. Mostly they're traditional, non-digital agencies, as I said, integrated. So they may have some digital, but they're looking to develop that further. And then also sometimes tech or specialist digital. So they're definitely in the digital arena, but they may be, for example, a pure play e-commerce agency and they want to offer wider services. So I get involved and help them. And what I'd hoped for anybody who's joining this session to get out of it is that if you're one of those three types of agencies particularly, this will just help you think through all the things that are involved in launching digital services in a kind of logical fashion. And then in a profitable way, so without jumping into services that you may be charging for, but not actually making that much of a margin on. And then thirdly, which is a bit I really like to help people with, is stop those false starts where people rush in to get into digital because they think rightly for the market they should do, but they start going down a particular route without stopping and thinking about it. And that can waste a lot of time further down the road. You have to kind of pull back and start all over again. And I've worked with agencies where that gets really frustrating. So as I've mentioned, for me, really quickly, 25 years in the agency world. I've run digital operations, that's UK, but also working in a large global network, so working with other parts of the business. I've had 17 years in total in digital, back pretty much, well, not to the start, obviously, but pretty early days from new media, as we called it. And then the last 5 years as an independent, working with a whole range of agencies, mostly UK, but some international, and from really small startups through to, again, established network agencies who are trying to think again about how they offer digital services. So the areas I'm going to go through, there's so much to talk about, and hence that's why there's a summit here with lots of different really experienced speakers. But the bits that I'm going to focus on will be taking a kind of framework approach to launching your digital marketing services, looking at some of the common blocks to ambition, so things that people find that they get stuck on really early on, agency owners when they get started. And then two key areas, how do you get those guys with the skills in-house or upskill your own team? How do you charge for this? That's the thing that people scratch their heads around a lot. How do you charge for digital? And then look at some new business ideas, and then a final word on process. So I've got a background in operations as much as anything within agencies, and process is the thing, particularly with digital, that catches people out if they're not careful. So the typical journey, when I have worked with agencies and then been within them myself, but for my agency clients, what I see when they launch out is a whole load of kind of switching around, lots of hairpin bends, so where they go quickly into one area, think we want to run something in digital, maybe bring in a new team, and then are trying to figure out what they do next. So they're jumping around. There's a lot of time and effort spent in kind of moving backwards and forwards without having a plan laid out first. And that's the bit I really want to, if I can, get across. This is a framework that I've put together. There are lots of other frameworks out there that I know other consultants have worked with, so I'm not saying that this is by any means the most comprehensive, but it's built from experience and talking to agency owner clients and seeing what they want. So I break things into 6 different areas. I won't go through them all from a time point of view this morning, but what you have there is things around, being really focused around your business goals. So before you do anything, decide your goals, work out what it is you're trying to do over the next 1, 3, or 5 years in terms of using digital marketing to grow the agency. Through to then what will you do from a branding point of view. So you will, I would hope, and I'm sure, have a value proposition around the existing agency, but when you're blending in digital, what does that mean, and how do you go and tell the rest of the world about that proposition and put your story out there? I mean, it's hugely, as we all know, it's hugely competitive in the agency world. In the UK alone, where I'm based, anything between 14,000 and 16,000 agencies. The States, I'm not sure the exact figures, what, 50, 75, 100,000, I don't know, and then globally beyond that, basically hundreds of thousands of agents, tens to hundreds of thousands of agencies. So getting your proposition right is really important. And then I move through looking at profitability, account growth plans, and then more in-house stuff around transformation of the agency, around processes, etc. So saying that's not the framework which might suit everybody, but it's a really good place to start when you're planning out digital marketing services. Don't launch into it is the big thing that I'm wanting to get across today. Just as a quick sideline note, a lot of the things I'll be talking about are covered in depth. I write guides on the Smart Insights website. Probably everyone's aware of that, but it's a great resource site for all things digital marketing. But within that, the Growth Agency Hub, the Agency Growth Hub, sorry, where there's a whole set of toolkits and guides, is a great place to go and have a look if you haven't already. A lot of the things I'm talking about are covered there in terms of things like account growth plan. So a 7 or 8 page, if I remember rightly, templated Word document that takes you through all the stages around account growth planning. So have a look at that if you get time. Okay, so when I typically work with agency owners, and from guys that I've worked with in the past who I've talked to who run agencies, there are some pretty serious blocks to their ambition. So they're really keen to grow digital. One of the first blocks, I think, is going for the wrong type of work. So the classic thing will be an agency might have built a couple of websites for a client, but they're a non-digital agency, as it were. They built a website, but then they, and this has happened on a couple of occasions for clients that I know, they'll then start looking at app development, and that's another world again, and it's away from everything else that the rest of the agency does. So picking up or chasing the wrong kind of work can be a real block to your ambition. Second block is upskilling of teams. So trying to get your existing teams who are potentially completely non-digital, or maybe have some PR skills but haven't worked in social media. That can be a real challenge. And then going outside the agency, so away from upskilling your own team, but going to the market and try and find the right talent. That's a real catch-22, because unless you're kind of involved in digital, it's really hard to then go and find those digital people and understand the guys who are kind of talking a good talk, but really don't have the right kind of experience for you. So that can be a bit of a block. And then I think, as I mentioned before, making digital paid. So like any other service, you can go down the route of either paying by hour or on a day rate. There's a whole debate in the industry, I know, we all talk about it, around value, but you still need to know what it is that you're trying to charge for, and how do you make a margin from potentially external outsourced suppliers for digital. So there's a stumbling block right there for people just trying to figure out, how do I charge for this? How do I make money out of digital? Fifthly is around the new business strategy. So how do I attract that kind of business to my agency? How do I grow digital from having a plan put together in terms of new business? And a big block, and this does come up pretty much with everybody that I've worked with, is having the right kind of processes in-house within your agency. If you've been traditional or very limited in terms of digital marketing, So your role processes, whilst there's a lot of similarities and good practice in terms of agency process management and workflow and job bag management, there are certain things you need to think about that are a bit different for digital. So that's an evolution, I think, that a lot of agencies have to go through, a bit of a transformation around processes. So typically they are the blocks to ambition. So that's kind of, it sounds like that's being negative, but that's just the kind of sober points that you need to think about. You know, if you can tick all those off as you go through, you're really on the right road. So starting in a more kind of positive area, looking at what you can do in terms of growing digital services, and maybe obvious, but the best place to start is with existing clients. The reason I've started with this is that I have worked with some agency partners where they've actually launched out into the market and chased new business, new to the agency. You know, we started offering email marketing. Let's go out to the market. And I always say, start with, and again, it seems obvious, but start with your existing clients. The best way to do that is to put a plan together. You hear this phrase all the time in agency world, don't you, around organic growth. So, you know, let's go for organic growth. And it's not a phrase I really particularly happy with clients, because to me, organic implies that it's just going to happen naturally. Things are going to grow in a kind of relaxed fashion, but really you need to look at a plan. So figuring out which clients, not all clients are equal, which clients are going to work best for you in terms of offering digital marketing services, and then what sort of services within that. So what are you going to go specifically to them with in terms of a digital service? So the best place to start is you get your account team or your FD with your account team to work together to look at the most profitable clients, the ones that you've got the strongest relationships with. They're the guys you can go and talk to about on a one-to-one basis about this new set of services that you want to offer. And again, there'll be whole loads of different formats around a particular matrix for approach you can take. This is one that I put together a while back. It evolves over time as new services come out, but basically, as you can see on the left-hand side, you would list out all your clients, and then over the last 12 months, just an idea, a notional idea of the revenue that you generated from them. And that's from any digital services that you may have offered before. If you're brand new into anything digital marketing, everything over to the right from display ad onwards will be blank. But if you've offered any kind of digital marketing services, something you can say is a project that you've worked for with those clients or that client, you would then put a tick or a yes into the applicable box. And then another thing to add to that is you can then start with your own agency in mind thinking, well, we don't really want to offer, for example, PPC as a core service. That's a really complex part of the business that we're all part of. So maybe from the start, we've got a PR team. We'll stick with doing social ads, and we might look at some content creation because they're more allied to what we're doing. It's more comfortable to talk about that stuff to existing clients. So you can grade things in effect between a green and a red or whatever system you like to say, where are the opportunities for us? What do we really want to offer from day one? What do we want to just maybe work with an external partner or just leave at the moment because it's not a natural fit for us? And then as a third layer on that, I get clients to add in where they've already got either an existing case study or some credentials, some creds, because that's the proof that you're going to go out to the existing clients with to say, look, we may not have worked with you in social ads, but here are a couple of case studies of other clients that we've worked with, and that just demonstrates that we can take on that kind of work. So it's a mapping exercise, I guess, is what I'm saying. And it really nicely visually shows you where your opportunities are to go after your existing clients. On the back end, and again, as having I'm big on kind of frameworks and processes, is that for each of your existing accounts that you want to go and talk to, and you'll have your typically group account director or senior account director, you know, the senior client services teams will know those individual accounts, those clients really well. But again, it's quite surprising. Sometimes they'll know a client really well, but they've never sat down to create an account plan. It's something that I see fairly typically. So this kind of approach works. As I mentioned at the start of the presentation, there are a couple of things on the Smart Insights site. I put an account growth plan template together, but the key stages are the ones that you can see now. So things like looking at the account in its wider context, you know, what are their pressures as a business or a brand? What are their threats and opportunities? Is there anything that gets you thinking about what kind of digital marketing service you could offer to help them with those threats or help them grow those opportunities? You would then look at things like the historical or current situation on their finances, how you've worked with them before, how you can maybe frame a story when you go and see them. It's almost like a mini pitch in effect to say, here's what we know that you like about us. Here's the things that we've done before. Now here are some new services. We think they'd be a great fit for you for the following reason. So this is just helping you structure your presentation back into the client. And then through things like getting teams together to have brainstorms, generate some great ideas around different services. So we may have worked with a client on a website, but here are 5 ideas around some CRM or email marketing to drive traffic to that website. Here's some ideas around doing some display ads to get traffic to that website. So keep it all relevant to that particular client. So just a framework really to get you thinking about how you're going to sell some thoughts into that particular client, just keeping the whole thing tailored. Okay, now a big issue that I see, going back to those barriers to growth, is on digital skills. I'm sure it's the same in many markets, but in the UK, we do have a bit of a problem with some digital skills. It's maybe a bit surprising, but it's hard, for example, on occasion to get hold of really good developers, or to get creative guys who understand user experience, so they understand the whole kind of UX side of web developments or digital marketing. So there's a lot of things being done, some great courses at universities and colleges around the country, but there is still an issue around digital skills and digital skills shortage. Probably the best place to start, therefore, if you can, is look within the existing agency, within your team, and see how you can grow some skills. So take some of the good guys who've got excellent account handling experience, or some of the creatives who you know have got a real interest or have already maybe worked in some small way in terms of digital design, and grow them. And then outside of that, start looking at buying skills. So where do you go to actually buy in some skills to support and enrich your existing team? So a couple of thoughts on that. I did a webinar maybe a year and a half ago for Smart Insights, and one of the things we asked some of the guys was, where this is some agency clients, where are your blocks to growing skills in-house? So I've alluded to those, I've talked about those, but typically the things that we saw were that the blocks that they had, so with their own teams trying to grow digital, the issues that they had were that there was a lack of a general understanding of the digital landscape. So they're let's call them kind of traditional account handlers, didn't really know about the full spread of all those opportunities in terms of social and platforms, or didn't have a really good understanding of content marketing. So weren't really aware about the whole kind of, maybe surprisingly, inbound marketing opportunity for their clients. Where they did have some of that understanding, they really didn't have much in the way of any experience in specific channels. So by channels, I mean also kind of social channels, platforms, but maybe more typically channels in terms of things like email marketing or content marketing, or video creation, video marketing. So there was a real lack of experience, and by experience, that's things like actually being involved in creating videos for content marketing, or working through with a social media partner in terms of putting a social media plan together. So even if they understood the general landscape, they didn't have any specific experience. Another one which we were kind of really conscious of, and people were and I've had this conversation over many times over the last 5 years or 6 years, is around allowing people time to go out to courses and seminars. And I'm sure some of the other speakers over this whole seminar week will want to talk to you about training and allowing your team to have some really in-depth training. And it's so important to make time in the business to get account handlers, creatives, anybody techie in-house, to go out there and talk to the rest of the world and spend time at seminars and courses. It's not a cost to business, it's a real opportunity. Here's a big area that is a problem, and it's one that it's down to an individual basis with some of your existing teams. And it's the old expression of, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And sometimes that's just the case, that you can find courses for people to go on, you can give them the chance to get some specific new skills, but there's just that unwillingness maybe sometimes to want to do that. There's a fear factor that, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with this area. So you need to identify that pretty early on and see how you can help people to pick up new skills. Some people are just reluctant, so you need to find a way around that. And there's also, again, more for client services and account handling, sometimes a lack of confidence with clients. So helping them with either some of the areas above and or some new presentation ideas around presenting design and build work for websites, or explaining a content plan. So giving people some experience really helps them boost their confidence before they go in cold the first time to try and sell that great new content marketing plan that you've put together. So there can be a bit of an issue there in terms of growing skills, but just being aware of all these areas, I think, will kind of set you off on the right track. I should just say before I move further that that's not to say any of the previous areas, and not to say that everybody in the agency must now become super shiny, new and digital. You will have some guys who are excellent at some of the more traditional, and for you still hugely important in terms of fees and revenue generation areas of the business. So it doesn't mean that you have to move everybody into becoming a digital creative, or becoming an account handler or project manager who does nothing but work on digital projects. If some of the guys work for you on TV, print, press, then of course put the skills where they're best applied. But that doesn't mean to say that you shouldn't try and upskill as many people as possible and move them into the digital arena. So growing those skills in-house, I've probably covered some of this off. It's again, back to a plan. So audit the existing team skills, ask guys what they've worked on. They may have only been with you for a matter of months, but could have worked at a previous agency and actually been involved in website design and build, or could have been involved in social media. So audit their skills, get a plan put together, get them out to a mix of formal training, digital events and seminars, get people to move across. And I think this is really important, to get people into mixed skills or mixed experienced events. So send your creatives off to something that's more techie kind of focused. I've just worked with a client who sent off some of the new digital team to a project management seminar in the UK, in Manchester. A great event. Only one of them actually is going to be involved day to day with project management, but the rest of the team went along because it's just a great experience for them. They pick up some new things, some new ways of talking. They meet the rest of the industry. So spread the attendance across a whole mix of kind of all things digital, whether it's meetups, workshops, some relaxed, after work events, etc. Just get people out there soaking up the new industry that they're going to be part of. Let the rest of the agency know what's coming up. So your human resources team will probably usually do that. And then when people come back, and I know some agencies are really good at this and other agencies almost forget because everyone's busy. If somebody's been out to a great event, get them to come back and do that show and tell thing for everybody else in digital, so they can talk to new digital guys in the agency or the traditional guys, offline guys, but they should be presenting to everybody and telling them about and showing what they've learned from the outside world. Things change so quickly, as we all know. It's great to get people to come and talk to you one-to-one about that. And then on that note, it's really good to get external speakers in. So if you're not currently offering media in-house, but you do want to offer that to a client, get an expert PPC or get an expert content or SEO partner in, another agency, in effect, non-conflicting agency or independent media partner, to come in and talk to you about some new developments. So that's a great way of kind of educating your own team. Okay, so that's growing the skills in-house. The other route, of course, is to go out and buy those skills in. So go out to the market. Again, when I've worked, I predominantly work in the UK, as I've mentioned. On a regional basis across the north of the UK and then down to London and across to Ireland, to Dublin. I can see that there are, in each of those areas, and it'll be the same in every market in the world, a real mix of local or regional scenes. So little agency kind of networks, there'll be freelancers will meet up. There'll be freelancers offering a whole range of different services. So get to know the thing that's applicable to your city. If you're based in one city or one region, get to know the local scene. So start, if you're the agency owner as well, start going out to some of these events, start getting together a contacts list, ask other people for recommendations around great freelancers, say hello, do it in a human way, and get a coffee before the project arrives. So if you think you're going to need web design skills, even if there's no projects at the moment, while you're putting your plan together with your clients, get coffee with a couple of great recommended freelancers and just start talking to them, and then you're kind of in a good position when those projects start coming in. You can then go and buy those talents in. So bring them on a contract basis, maybe just to say, look, we've got a new project, we're going to bring that in-house. So just buying talent on a needs basis, a freelance basis or contract basis. The third route, which I've put this one with a question mark on because this is a big area and is the subject of a whole seminar on its own, is around M&A, mergers and acquisitions. So agencies, traditional agencies, will sometimes look to go and acquire a digital shop. So on the surface, that can be a great idea, and I can think of some examples as I'm talking that work really well in that area over the years. But I can also think of somewhere there's a clash of either culture or expectations about the services that are being offered. So an M&A route is one to really think about carefully, and often get a third-party expert involved who works in that kind of area. So there's a couple of guys that I work with who work with bringing different agencies of different sizes together, because there's a lot of moving parts in that area, but it is something that you can look to do. Okay, so we talked about kind of growth and looked at ways of skilling teams and getting the new business machine going. Really important area now is, how do you make this stuff pay? So what's the kind of revenue model that you're going to look at? I would say I always do this with every client that I start to work with, where they say, look, we're going to go for digital. You know, we're a PR agency. We want to offer social media. I would say, well, just stop and think about, you know, how are you going to charge for this? Do you know the different elements involved in, for example, social media? Do you know what's involved in managing that? How much time are you going to put to that? You know, how are you going to charge? Is it value versus a day rate, etc.? And how do you put together a really good estimate? So that's the really important thing, because it's a new world for some of the more traditional agencies, is just understanding, how do we make money and how do we charge for this stuff? If you don't get that bit right at the start, then further down the line, you'll get really frustrated because you're not making the money that you thought you would make, and you're not serving your clients well, which is really important. So in terms of estimating, I get clients to look at things like, you know, again, maybe a bit obvious, but challenging the brief. So getting the brief back, thinking, is this really what the client's meaning? Let's interpret it and come back to them and say, you know, here's what you've told us. It's great, but we also think there's a brilliant opportunity for your business if we look at a couple of other areas. When you start putting together how much time might be involved, or some of the ideas and how they're going to be paid for, triangulate that thinking within the agency. So talk to the creative team and ask them what they think about things that are going to be offered out as part of that service. Maybe get one of the account handlers to sit down with you and start looking at how much time you're going to put to something, what the rate card should be, etc. And then always caveat, particularly when you're starting on digital, caveat everything that you send out to clients to say, we think the website design and build project will be this amount of time or this value, but we still don't know the following 5 things. So you start listing out the exceptions to say, here's what's included in our estimate and our proposed fee, here's what's not included, and this is what we still need to discover with you. So just caveating that helps. And of course, if you've done some digital work, I'm talking primarily about agencies that haven't done much in the way of digital marketing, but if you have got some projects under your belt, it's always a great thing, of course, just to look backwards and work out where you made money previously. And let's be honest, sometimes in this world that we're all in terms of agencies, sometimes where you don't make money, where you've estimated something, but the amount of time the agency spends has been hugely over. So that's always good to kind of learn those lessons before you go back out to estimate or quote out a similar project. And then look at rates as well. I keep talking about rates and rate cards. You can have the discussion around value. Again, that's down to your relationship with your client, and also in many ways your stand as an agency. And then I'd just say finally on that, in terms of when people start out in digital, there is a temptation, I've seen it, to give away projects, to say, you know, if we heavily discount the website design and build, then we'll pick up all the social work, or then we'll pick up all the content marketing. That isn't always the case, and don't give away all your thinking for free. And that includes things like the discovery phase. So if you're working with a client in a new market, you've got a lot of work to do for them. Don't give away all that thinking for free. There's a value to it. That's what they come to you for. So don't keep giving discounts in the hope of winning new work. There's a spiral, I think, with that. It's not a great thing to do. So new business. I'd mentioned before about looking at the in-house growth, so talking to existing clients about business. What I mean here is the new to the agency external new business, so going out to the market and trying to find some new clients. I would recommend every time, and this is whether you're working with an external lead generation business or whether you're putting together an inbound plan, always have a team together. So have 2 or 3 guys. It's a big weight. I know lots of agencies will have a new business director, but the best ones will also have some other guys in the agency working with them to support them. So there's a lot of weight on one's shoulders. I think one person's shoulders to just have one person. So get a team together and work through the following points from the start to the end in a really logical fashion. I won't read through all of them, but from your proposition, really getting that clear in terms of what that proposition is now that you're offering digital marketing services. It's going to change slightly in terms of your previous proposition. It won't change hugely, but you need to kind of merge that digital offering into your proposition. Think, as I mentioned before, about the kind of work that you want to go for. Again, I'm really conscious that some of these points I'm making are subject matters in themselves, but build buyer personas. Who is it you're going for? It might be a different persona to your traditional services. So you now might be dealing with the head of IT, or you might be dealing with a digital marketing director within your client or brand partner, where previously you're working with the marketing team, the marketing director. They could be very different people with different needs and wants. So build those buyer personas. Make sure your channels, your existing channels out there, so whether that's social, LinkedIn, etc., talk about your new services, etc. Go through sources of referral. Start thinking about your own SEO. So that's your content activity. You know, are people going to find you from an inbound point of view around digital marketing services that you're trying to offer? So again, I'll leave that list for the slide deck, but there are lots of moving parts there. So there's a lot of things to think through. But if you tick each one of those off in a logical fashion, with new digital marketing services in mind, you will, I guarantee, be in a better place in 3 to 6 months than you will if you just jump out there and start talking about the fact that you offer digital. A final point on this is just to wrap it up, is on processes, because this is one of the stumbling blocks I see fairly frequently with agencies moving into digital marketing, where they'll have hopefully some really good processes in house. They might have a job bag management system or a workflow management system. They'll have a set of forms that they use, but digital is a bit different. It's not hugely different. Some of the principles still apply, you know, getting a good brief into the system, estimating the cost of a project, working through from creative concepts, production, etc., and then looking at time management if you have a time management system in house. But there are some things that are different, particularly around terminology, and that's just making sure that everybody's aware of the different stages of a digital project. That's whether you use something like a 4D, so discover, define, develop, deliver kind of waterfall framework, or whatever it is that you use as an agency. There'd be slightly different terminology coming into that because of the fact that you're working on digital projects. So it's really important for the senior guys in the agency. So it's not just the guys who are on the ground, the account handlers and creatives, to understand all that. It's for the agency owner and the senior team to really understand the different stages of digital and the different terminologies that are used, and where you might need a different, for example, form that you've never used before around UX. So looking at user experience or usability testing, that's going to have to be fed somehow into that existing process that you've got. So it brings a lot of opportunities, but it also brings more paperwork and processes. But that's the thing you need to kind of get right at the start, and making sure that you're covering all the bases. Just on a final point on processes, and I put this slide in because I get asked this quite a lot in meetings, and it's a conversation I can see happening a lot on LinkedIn and other places. There comes a point, if you start offering digital marketing services, where you move from having account handlers to dedicated digital project or campaign managers. And I have been asked before, when's the right time to bring in a project manager? Rather than just having one of our account handlers start looking at things like putting Gantt charts together, getting involved with the creative or the UX guys around information architecture or UX. When's the right time that I need to get a dedicated resource to do that? I'm going to say really unhelpfully that really depends on the projects. If you very early on win from an existing client because they trust you for everything else that you do, but if you win a really big web project, a web design and build project, pretty much from day one, you need to get a project manager in. Your account handlers are doing all the brilliant things that account handlers do, working with clients and across client services in general. But you need that time to be focused, to be given to a project manager. So one of the things that works really well for a lot of agencies is start on a contract basis. So that design and build project, because it might be the first one that you've worked on, will maybe last 3 to 6 months. So go to contract, move on to a permanent employment when you know you've got 2 or 3 design and build projects coming down the line, as it were. So start contract, move to permanent. And work with your project manager around the best framework for your agency. So again, a huge debate in the industry. Some agencies will start off, who don't know much about digital, will go for the waterfall approach because it's something they can kind of get their head into and understand, a very fixed approach to putting projects through. They may have done that for TV campaigns, etc. But they'll maybe early on start thinking about agile. They've heard about it, or they'll look at a hybrid approach. I've been on a couple of seminars previously where we've talked about hybrid approaches. There is no one size fits all. It's something that needs to work for you as an agency and with your clients. So when you start engaging with a project manager, get them involved and start thinking about the best project approach for you as a business. That's that. Thank you. I hope that's been useful, and that some of the points in there have just helped you frame the process that you should think about to go through launching some of your own digital services. And the best of luck, whatever size or shape of agency that you are, and whatever stage you're at. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Mark.
Okay, it's a pleasure.
If you just want to go back to your video, I just have a few questions for you. Perfect.
There we go. Okay, back on.
Okay, great.
Great.
So I really like the tips on how to grow skills in-house. I think that's just really relevant. So I was just wondering if there was like one example or something that sticks out in your mind of like a company that did this really well. Like, did they have one kind of cool way of like growing skills in-house or something? I know you gave a lot of examples there.
Yeah, there's a couple of agencies I'm thinking of. I always have this thing of being, I won't mention names, I'm sure lots of consultants are the same from an NDA point of view, but I can think of a really big UK agency which is primarily events based. So they were an events marketing business, UK and global offices as well. And what they did to grow the skills in-house was do that audit. So they worked out who had an interest in it, or maybe have worked from an events point of view on some digital media. So it might be digital signage, or put together the traffic driving activity for that event, that big event. And then they sent them out to some particular project management courses, and sent a couple of the creative guys out to some meetups in the evening. So just, kind of getting to meet other digital design, getting to meet digital designers. So those guys went out, came back in-house, and then trained the rest of the agency. And then on a Wednesday, they would stop everybody in the agency, and they're pretty big. There's about 80 people in that team. They would stop the whole agency, get lunch in, and then bring in some external speakers. So there was a rolling program. Somebody in the HR, the human resources team, would work with one of the account handlers and go out and identify a whole range of people. So that's bringing people like Google in, or just working with some local media partners, and bring people in for an hour externally to talk about the latest in whatever it might be. So it's a logical approach then, because you're sending your own team out to pick up things in the industry, sending out people to also do courses. Sorry, I should have said they sent a couple of guys out to the IDM and other training providers in the UK to look at particular courses, so getting certificates, etc. And that's a good way of skilling people up. One other clear example was for me, and I'm probably going back 7 or 8 years ago, when I worked for McCann Erickson in the UK. We identified that we needed some of the offline teams to become more digital. So we worked with one of the leading universities. I'd say I'm biased because I sometimes do some work for them, but they are really great in terms of digital marketing, is Manchester Metropolitan University, MMU. They've got a superb digital marketing course. So they came in and they tailored the certificate in digital marketing, which they offered to their own students. They tailored it to us as an agency so that we could put all our account handlers and all our creatives, so these guys were non-digital initially, we put them through a short but accelerated certificate in digital marketing. So we had lecturers coming down to the university. We would send people into the university itself for evening courses. And then in between that, myself and some colleagues were then running in-house training sessions. So that was a formal qualification that the team had at the end of that. So, I mean, I think that worked really well as an example.
Yeah, that's awesome. That'd be really cool.
Cool.
Yeah, and kind of on like the flip side of that, was there any like examples you've seen of like people making really big mistakes when trying to go digital, and like were they able to overcome it? Were they?
Yeah, I think that the mistakes often come around the was two things. One is charging wrong, so not really underestimating the amount of time involved. And I think that's a common thing, I think, for everyone, isn't it? That, you know, it's the web or it's social media. So how hard can that be? That's really quick. Everyone can put together a site, you know, in WordPress in 2 days. Surely it's something we only need to estimate and allow 5 days design, 5 days build for a website. So that, for really non-digital agencies, where you've got very often the kind of the senior team, the owner or the senior guys who maybe haven't done much themselves in terms of being digital native, is that expression. There's an underestimation of the amount of time and therefore what you should be charging, because digital is, you know, so much value in what you can do for helping a client build their brand, but that's forgotten. And what's looked at is the speed of the technology, not the thinking that goes behind it. And also, genuinely, as we all know, how long it takes to build a great website, all the different people that are involved. So that's where you get some real issues. I think that's the biggest mistake I've seen from a lot of agencies starting out in digital, is not charging for everybody, and not charging or thinking through the amount of time that's involved, and therefore getting really frustrated because they'll get to the end of a website project. It's taken longer than they thought it would because they've underestimated. They haven't made money on it, and they just think, well, why am I moving into the space? Clients are asking me to, but I'm not making money. What can I do here? So that's a big stumbling block, I think.
Perfect. Yeah. So last one. Do you have any words of wisdom or like final pieces of advice for anyone looking to grow the digital side of their agency?
Yeah, I think I would say don't jump in feet first to start with. Just have a think. Some of the things I talked about on the slides. Have a think about the services that are going to fit your business and what works for you. That, as you know, there's so much out there in terms of digital services that you could offer. The landscape is so huge and it changes. You only have to. I mean, I jump into Feedly on a daily basis and I can see 20 new things that have come out in terms of digital services or techniques. But then the temptation is to become a bit snowblind. I think as an agency owner, you know, they're reading stuff all the time thinking, well, I've got to offer this service. Oh, hang on, there's a new one here. I need to offer that. I'd say just take a deep breath and think about what services work best for you. So if you're a PR agency, it probably is a better fit to start looking at things like social media. And I know lots of PR agencies have obviously gone down that route, rather than trying to offer app development or website, because that's a thing that every other agency is offering. So my advice would be just stop and think about what works truthfully for you and makes a compelling proposition for your agency and is believable by either your existing clients or other prospects out in the market. You know, what looks believable for you as a business and is a good fit for you is the area that you should focus on first, not try and offer every digital service under the sun. Just focus in the areas that make sense for you and it's going to help your clients at the end of the day.
Perfect. That's great.
Cool.
Okay, so thanks again for joining us, Mark.
Okay, my pleasure. Enjoyed that. Thank you.